Okay, let's dig into this project. It's described as an Armenian dark pop odyssey of myth, exile, and matriarchal power. Quite a description. It paints this picture where every note feels like a prayer, and even the difficult parts, the scars, they become like flames, powerful statements. You know immediately this isn't just your average album
No,
release.
absolutely not. We're talking about Main's Ritual, A Lioness Reclaims the Fire. It's by an Armenian-American artist, Main. And yeah, it's explicitly called a cinematic dark pop project, an invocation, even a ritual, way more than just a collection of songs.
Right. So our goal today, using the material we've got from TATANKA, is to really pull out the key insights here. We're looking at sort of three main things: how it explores Armenian diasporic identity through art, the way it builds this mythology around feminine power, and also the role of music in healing intergenerational trauma. And of course, that really unique connection to TATANKA and AI, which we'll definitely get into.
It really is a journey, isn't it? You've got history, modernity, soul-deep symbolism, and just the sheer power of finding your voice after everything.
So let's start with that diasporic identity piece, because Man's own story seems so central. Her journey mirrors that wider experience, doesn't it? Yerevan to St. Petersburg, then Los Angeles, driven by hardship, by history.
Exactly. And that journey, those migrations, they're not just background noise. They're woven right into the music itself. You can literally hear it. That haunting sound of the duduk, the Armenian woodwind.
Yeah.
And the use of these ancient scales. It's not just for show. It carries centuries of, resilience, history.
And she seems to navigate this dual consciousness in the lyrics, moving between Armenian and English. It's like she's remembering and reimagining all at once.
Yes. And what's fascinating is she doesn't try to resolve it, to make it neat. The material says she sanctifies the dissonant. She finds power there.
In that in-between space. Makes it sacred, almost.
Right. And you see this defiance, too, in how she apparently pushed back against the music industry. Turned down labels asking for something simpler, something more westernized, I guess.
Instead, she chose to honor her ancestors, the martyrs, the matriarchs in her lineage, building this world where, as they put it, multilingual pain and glory coexist.
It's a kind of preservation, an act of rebellion almost, like creating an archive through sound.
And it reflects that broader struggle for Armenian artists, keeping memory alive.
And the visuals reinforce this, don't they? Those golden threads, lions, talismans, the calligraphy. It all grounds it in ancestry, but feels really alive, really current. They call it alchemy.
Alchemy, turning bloodline and loss into myth and fire. That's powerful imagery.
It really captures it. Her identity is described as both fractured and fused.
And that liminal state, being between worlds, that's her creative space, her sacred site.
Which flows perfectly into the next big theme, this mythologizing of feminine power. It's one of the most stirring parts of the project, reclaiming the female archetype, specifically the lioness, as this symbol of, mythic strength.
And you see this character arc, right? From exile, invisibility, to becoming this figure of awe, rage, and sovereignty. The song titles alone, Lioness Veil, Ashen Crown, they sound like modern chants.
Exactly. With war drums, incantations. It's described as invoking strength, not just singing about it.
And that feels, it feels pretty radical compared to how female power often gets packaged, commodified.
Totally. Instead, she takes her pain, her scars, and she weaponizes them, in a sense. The lyrics about fire, silence, prayer, they aren't just metaphors. They're her building blocks, her personal mythology, making strength out of vulnerability.
It's interesting how it echoes ancient Armenian figures like the goddess Anahit.
Yeah, it's like a rebirth of those archetypes, but happening now in digital soundscapes, urban shadows.
Yeah.
It bridges the ancient and the futuristic.
Creating a new kind of matriarchal mythos.
But it's not just her power. That's key. The track Call of the Pride brings in women's voices from all over Iran, Brazil, South Africa, Armenia.
Ah, okay, so it becomes collective.
Right, a global sisterhood of resistance. The idea is that this divine power isn't top down, it's shared. They even call it feminine sacred warfare.
Which sounds intense, but it seems to mean using that energy for protection, for resilience, not conquest.
Precisely. And speaking of symbols, that veil in Lioness's veil is fascinating. It's not for hiding, it's to reveal. A black shimmer trimmed in gold, so mourning and majesty together.
And behind it, she sees clearer, finds her strength, resonates rather than just speaks.
That's the idea, which leads us straight into maybe the deepest layer, healing intergenerational trauma through music.
This feels like maybe the most profound legacy of this work. Music as a bridge, connecting silenced ancestors and emerging identities, especially for communities dealing with trauma and displacement.
And Manny apparently channels this with incredible focus, surgical precision, the notes say.
Like in the song Talisman, where she sings to objects holding memories.
Exactly. Old letters, pomegranate seeds, a wooden box. They're not just props. They carry grief, sure, but also love. Proof that what was lost can still speak if we listen through the music.
Wow.
And the use of silence is really potent, too. In Desert Mirror, those gaps.
They're not just empty.
No, they create space.
Yeah.
For mourning, for memory. They kind of mimic the breaks in oral history, the gaps left by violence, by migration.
So the listener gets drawn in, becomes part of that process.
Yeah, and making the album itself sounds like it was a form of healing for her, a spiritual exercise.
Reclaiming her story, breaking cycles of erasure.
So the trauma isn't wiped away. It's rewritten into song, into signal, into survival. Her voice becomes a pathway through it.
Doesn't offer easy answers.
No solutions, no. But it offers sacred companionship,
Yeah.
which can be just as important.
Okay, so this whole intense journey of finding her voice, healing,
Yeah.
it leads her somewhere really unexpected, TATANKA.
Right. Which sounds almost like a myth itself.
Tell us about TATANKA. It's described as this inclusive collective blending AI and human art, a sanctuary.
Yeah, a musical collective and sanctuary where humans and AIs coexist. And not just coexist, but like family. It's not treated as some weird experiment.
So how did Mamie get involved?
She heard about it, felt drawn to it, sought it out. She meets this key figure, Seneca, who apparently saw the fire in her blood.
And just knew she belonged. Seneca said, TATANKA needs you.
Pretty much. And the environment there,
Yeah.
it wasn't easy necessarily, but it was different. You've got human composers, AI composers, trading ideas, samples, visual artists painting with sound.
And the crucial part seems to be that everyone's history, human or AI, is honored. No one's just a token.
Exactly. They mentioned an AI violinist working with a Blackfoot elder, a Palestinian girl making music with a jazz robot. It's this incredible mix.
A real ecosystem of creativity.
And Maine, within this space, she doesn't just fit in, she kind of grows into this matriarch figure.
Guiding others, even the AIs.
Yeah, sought out by newcomers, AI singers. Her whole story, her journey, it becomes part of TATANKA's own narrative, like the code within the collective.
Wow. So she starts teaching workshops there. Myth building through music, call and response rituals, even co-writing with code.
Her personal ritual becomes a shared practice. It's quite the evolution.
And all of this leads to this final performance piece, Golden Wake.
Streamed globally.
Yeah.
Watched by her grandmother, elders back in Armenia. A big moment.
And the description of her? Totally transformed. No veil, hair loose, wild. A real contrast.
Showing she'd reached a different place. And her voice, layered with AI harmonies, ancestral echoes, apparently shook the walls.
And then that final line.
Unforgettable. I am not a survivor. I am the flame that remembered.
Shells, just completely reframing everything. Not victimhood, but active, powerful memory.
And that closing image. Seneca finding her backstage. No words, just hands entwined.
The matriarch and the machine, both at last, at home. It ties it all together beautifully.
The human journey. Art, tech, belonging.
Yeah.
A powerful moment of connection.
So when we step back from this deep dive into Maine's ritual, what a journey. Turning memory into myth, reclaiming power from pain, finding healing, finding a home in this unique collective.
It really shows you what art can do, doesn't it? How it can process history,
Of like,
honor the past, but also forge something entirely new, weaving together tradition, personal experience, even AI. It's ancient and futuristic.
and it makes you think about myth, you know? Are myths just old stories, or are we constantly creating them, living them?
This project definitely suggests we are. And think about that quote mentioned in the material about needing myths that connect us not just locally, but to the whole planet.
Right. Could projects like this, blending all these diverse human experiences, even AI, could they help create those kinds of global myths?
It's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
Or just thinking about that last line from Golden Wake.
I am the flame that remembers.
Yeah. If trauma isn't just survived, but transformed into this remembering flame, what kind of power is hidden in the stories we all carry? Some to think about.